Hello again. Welcome to episode 11 of Mann's Cans. This episode will be covering a Schiit product. So, how can it be good if it's shit, right? Well, Schiit is a very famous brand, Schiit. This is their standalone modular designed DAC, the Yggdrasil. And I've had this for over 2 years now. I'm not going to get too specific into the technicalities of this product because you can find it online everywhere, especially through the website itself. But some of the special things about this design is that it does a more pure bit-by-bit signal translation into your equipment than most other DACs. And another benefit to having a standalone DAC is that there's no other engineering required, such as amplification and other things that come from having a DAP or a cell phone or any other product that is not just a standalone DAC. So pure concentration is put on the design, just converting the digital signal to analog. Another great benefit that's kind of interesting about this DAC is it is a modular design. And that means that components within this box, within the DAC itself, they can be added and removed for future upgrades. This is actually version 1. There's a version 2 that came out last year. I just haven't done the upgrade. Maybe I'll actually wait for a version 3 to come out. They also have an upgrade for the USB jack for the input. So what are the cool things about the Yggdrasil? Well, first, their website's cool. You should read their description. You should read the manual about this. They're really loosey-goosey about being professional, and that's part of where their name comes from. But this thing is heavy as heck. I think it's like 30 pounds or so. But if you look on the back, there are a series of inputs, obviously, and then you can plug it in too so you can get electricity out of it. Schiit recommends that you just leave this on anytime you have it plugged in. So you have several input options available. And then on the front of the player, there is a phase button. So it's to give absolute phase. Some CDs, especially older CDs, might actually benefit from using that button. And then in the center, this big button is the input select. And so there are a series of icons here that represent the inputs in the back. Finally, there's a little light here. This is when there's the clock timing of your audio device is not fast enough or not accurate enough for the DAC to be able to translate the audio. If you read the manual, this light is get better gear button light. Some of the drawbacks for some people might be that it doesn't play master quality audio, MQA, or DSD files. But for some people, maybe they'll say, oh, no MQA, it's not the best ever. I'll talk about burn-in with this because burn-in is possibly a myth for some people, and for others, it is a religion. And it's a good time to bring it up with the Yggdrasil DAC. So people were saying that even Schiit themselves, even Schiit recommends that you give it at least 2 weeks to burn in. A lot of headphone enthusiasts and speaker enthusiasts, they will swear by the concept of burn-in. The idea is that when you have headphones or new speakers, all the parts have been recently installed, but as the vibration and volume level in each frequency range starts to go through the speakers or the drivers and the headphones, as those vibrations go through the device, it starts to cause all the components to settle. And so some people will say, oh, it takes 50 hours to burn in these headphones or 200 hours. And for me personally, I kind of always thought it might have been true when I had headphones and I listened to them for a while. I wasn't sure if they really did settle in more after burn-in, or if maybe I just got my ears acclimated and used to the sound signature of the headphones. And so that whole burn-in concept to me, I thought, well, maybe it does apply in some ways, maybe it doesn't. But when I got the Yggdrasil, I plugged it in, and I started using it right away. So I started playing my music tracks through it, and I stuck on my good old Alpha Dogs, and I listened for about 20 minutes. As I was listening with this into the V281, I listened for about a half hour, and I was not impressed. The audio was just way too tinny, and it didn't have any punch or dynamics. It was a very anemic sound signature. And I thought, oh, I really hope that burn-in makes sense, because if this DAC at this price sounds like that, I'm just going to chuck it off the freaking building. And then I gave it a full week of just playing music. But after a week of having it turned on and listening to music again, I noticed that, yeah, there was a subtle change. It started to have a little bit more richness and color and definition in the sound versus the first time I played it. But I still wasn't completely impressed. So then I waited 2 more weeks. So after 3 weeks of burn-in, I immediately noticed a drastic difference in the quality. So yes, 2 or 3 weeks after burning in this thing, it's going to sound phenomenal. However subjective your perception of sound is and your preferences, I would find it a bit of a challenge for someone to argue against the concept of burn-in not being a realistic concept if they have the Schiit Yggdrasil DAC. Once I got it burned in, I used it for like 3 weeks. This turned into one of my absolute favorite pieces of music gear. It is just amazing. Not only does it have a lot of inputs, which is great, but I noticed right away that it had better separation with the same speakers and the same amp, because I had the V281 before I got this, and I noticed right away that the sound quality had jumped precipitously after plugging in through the Yggdrasil. So I was like, oh, thank you, Yggy. Thank you so much for not disappointing me. But if I was to think about all of the stuff that I have the V281, which I love. I have the main line, and I love that. This costs more than either one of those. And I'm still happy that I purchased this. I'm not sure when or if I'll ever do an upgrade, because for me to have to pack this up and ship it and then pay the cost of getting it upgraded and then pay for the cost of having it shipped back to me and the time spent waiting for it to get back, I'm not really sure. I think I might just wait until version 3 upgrade comes out, and maybe there'll even be a new USB upgrade or something. So I'll just kind of put all the eggs in the same nest when I send it out there. So that way it would cost me less in the long run for the newest upgrades versus just piecemealing it, right? But regardless, I love this DAC. But it isn't perfect, right? Nothing's perfect. I do notice sometimes that it can be a little bit too resolving. It helps to expose a lot of the flaws in bad audio recordings. So if I have an album that isn't mixed very well, or I almost never listen to MP3s. I will notice though that if you have, this does a very good job of replicating the source material in a very honest way. So if you're using cheaper sounding audio files or really badly mixed albums, this isn't going to magically make it sound better. It can be rather unforgiving in that circumstance. So if you have, good sounding CDs, good sounding lossless audio files and albums, plug it in through here, stick it into a decent amp and decent headphones, you're definitely going to notice an improvement in sound quality. And I find that this is a wonderful match with the Violectric V281, which hopefully I'll talk about soon. I think with the solid state amplifier, it just helps to better replicate the cleanliness and the precision that you can get from this DAC. It sounds great with the main line as well, but the main line is that tube sound. So it's really going to sound a little bit less crisp. It's going to sound a little bit slower than what solid state the V281 does. Not that it's wrong, it's just sometimes you want something to sound a little more lush, and it really depends on the audio source, right? I don't really have any arguments or complaints about the Yggy. I'm really happy to have it, and it did elevate all my equipment to a new level. Um, I don't know what things would be like without this, because after 3 weeks of burning it in, I couldn't imagine going back. So I would have to say this is a very good purchase, and I'm very happy with it. For me personally, I'll stick with this for quite a long time, and I'm not sure I want to get another DAC versus something else in my headphone collection to upgrade. That's it for now. Thank you for watching. Hopefully soon I'll have an episode covering the V281. Yeah, I know. Shut up, subtext. I know. I might also have a review of the Verite using the Yggy with the V281 and the mainline. And so I can talk about more about the sound characteristics of the V281 and the mainline and how they're different simply because of the solid state and the tube sound. And the Verite will be my reference point. So I'll go a little bit more in depth into my explanation on the Verite headphones. Just give me time. Thank you for your time, and have a good day, evening, night, right? Do this again. Ciao.